Hey everyone, welcome to another brand new episode of CPOV Autographs. I, of course, am your host, Matt, aka Stormageddon. And before we get into this week's episode, I want to promote something that I very recently did. I was a guest on the brand new Mass Effect related podcast called Massively Affected. It is a podcast that asks the not so simple question of why Mass Effect? For those of you who might not know, although I don't know how, if you follow me anywhere, I am obsessed with the Mass Effect franchise. I have a podcast called Reignite dedicated to the Mass Effect franchise, and I was very lucky to become friends with the incredible Josh Silverman at last year's PAX East, right before the pandemic really took hold. And we both discovered that we are both equally obsessed with Mass Effect. And in honor of the Legendary Edition, which is out as of when this recording airs, Josh started recording a podcast, like I mentioned earlier, called Massively Affected, talking to different guests about why they love Mass Effect and why it's special to them, how they connected with it, all of those kinds of things. And I was his debut guest. I was the first guest on the podcast, episode number 1. And so that's really exciting. So if you have a chance, go check that out. You can find it on But Why Though, which is a nerdy website, or you can, of course, go to any podcast platform and just look for Massively Affected. So yeah, check that out. Now on to this week's episode. I am joined by the incredible Jacqmin and Jeff Rosenberg. They are the writers of We Broke Up, a movie starring William Jackson Harper and Aya Cash. It's an incredible indie romantic comedy that I've been obsessed with since the moment I watched it. And so the two of them joined me to talk about the movie, how they wrote it, the casting, all sorts of great behind-the-scenes stuff. We talk about some of their other projects as well. It is a delightful conversation. These two creators are incredible, and I'm really excited to share this conversation with you so you can adore them as much as I do and then go check out their movie, We Broke Up. So without further ado, here is my incredible, delightful, and hilarious conversation with Jacqmin and Jeff Rosenberg. Yeah, no, Laura, I've known you for a little while now, and I've wanted to have you on in general, and life gets in the way. But then after we watched We Broke Up, I immediately turned to Sarah and went, "Do you think her and Jeff will come on the podcast? I really want to talk about this movie. It's so good." And so, of course, you guys have been so gracious. So I'm so excited to have you here. We'll get started. I am chatting with the incredible Jeff Rosenberg and Jacqmin, two incredible humans who are the creative minds behind the movie We Broke Up. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us. Jinx.
We've known each other a long time.
Yeah.
What? Really?
And this is going to be our final conversation.
What? Oh, that's depressing.
Here we are. We've
Ever.
made it to the end of our journey.
We met in middle school. We're now in our 30s. It's time. Let's call it. Let's call it.
What? Before it goes south, right? So I have so many questions about We Broke Up, but I guess my first one is how did it come to be? Obviously you both wrote it and Jeff, you directed. I'm just curious where this movie came from, and is it based on true stories? Is it based on just an idea? Where did the inception of this movie come from?
Well, initially I had been talking to some friends of mine that I collaborated with on other things about this idea of sort of a couple going to a wedding after breaking up. And I had this very specific image in my head, which was the couple sitting in the car with the words "We broke up" come across the screen as they're sitting there post-breakup. The listeners won't be able to see this. I'm going to grab it. I can send you a photo of it. I'm holding up now. I drew this.
Oh, I love that. Oh, yes. You're going to definitely send this.
I drew this and hung it above my computer. I'm a terrible artist for anyone listening. Just imagine the worst drawing ever, and that's what this is, of a couple sitting in the car with the words "We broke up" over them. And so I started trying to write it, and I liked some of the stuff I was writing, but I found myself sort of gravitating more toward Doug's character than Laurie's. Not because I'm not comfortable writing female characters. It just was turning more into like a Forgetting Sarah Marshall or something like that, like a breakup movie from one perspective. And so that's when I started thinking, I was like, you know, what I think would be more interesting would be if this was a dual protagonist movie and the characters had equal weight in it. And so at that point, you know, Laura and I, we used to direct each other's plays in high school. We've known each other for a very long time. And she was going to be out in LA for her first round of staffing television interviews. So we were meeting up at Umami Burger. We hadn't seen each other in like 5 or 6 years. I'm not one to like slow play things or like wait to pitch. So I think like Laura sat at the table and I go, hey, you want to write a movie together? And she goes, okay. And I was like, do you want to know what it's about? And she's like, I don't care. And that's when I think I probably either showed her a picture of the drawing I made or basically told her the general idea. And then from there, we started working on it.
That's amazing. And so, Laura, how long was the writing process?
I would say actually it didn't take long, given how much I know about how long it takes to break something now. I think our process was really unusual, but that dinner was in December 2012. And we worked on it, you know, throughout the spring, throughout the winter. I want to say like we had a draft by late spring, early summer, and it felt good enough that I think in summer of 2013, we invited a bunch of sort of, you know, actor friends and friends over to my sublet to read it, you know, just like a casual sort of friends reading. So yeah, maybe like 6 months, something like that. And the initial process was, my process is not this now, but we would sort of like write a chunk. And, you know, one of us would write a chunk, we'd pass it to the other person, they'd make some changes, we'd sort of pass it back and forth. This is not the best way to work on something. It's not super ideal, but it kind of worked for us for that first draft. And then, you know, we would refine it in chunks over the years. And then finally, I think the thing that really helped propel the final draft was we were actually in the same room for a couple weeks. This was in October and November 2019, that Jeff would come to my office when I was done. I was in a writer's room then for a show. He would come to the office after work and we would just stay there for a few hours, sort of working through notes and working on a draft in the same room. So it changed gradually over time. But I think that in the initial first draft was maybe a 6-month sort of thing.
Oh, wow. All right. I mean, also, I am someone who has no idea how long any of this stuff takes. So to me, that's like, oh, that sounds good. I have no idea one way or the other. We're going to jump around a little bit, but I do want to talk right away about casting because, like, I love this cast. And there are a couple of people who, I mean, they're all phenomenal, but like Tony Calavero specifically as Jason is one of my favorite characters because he is just such a ridiculously charming character, and his whole arc through the movie is as a supporting character is one of my favorites. But also, of course, William Jackson Harper's Doug feels like such a perfect fit, especially spending as much time as we did with him as Chidi. This feels so different. So my roundabout way of asking, did you have any of these actors in mind when you were casting the movie, or is it just auditioning and you found them?
Initially, we did not write specifically for anyone necessarily in terms of the actors, but like, so I work on The Good Place. I'm an assistant director on that show. So from early on, our casting, my good friend Amanda Lanker Doyle and her partner Chrissy Fiorelli Ellington, you know, they recommended Aya to us very early in the process. And Laura had some connection to Aya already from Theater World. And I started watching You're the Worst, and I was a few minutes into an episode, and I was like, okay, Aya should be Lori. That's done. Yeah. And so this was like in 2014, we just like offered the movie to her, and she said yes.
Amazing.
Conversely, I was working on The Good Place, and Will, when I first found out who were the actors in The Good Place, this is like the beginning of season 1, when I get like Will's deal memo, and I need to like tell him where to be for a costume fitting, I'm looking at this name and I'm like, I know this guy. I was like, why do I know this guy? And I like look on Facebook, and at that point he's, you know, not famous actor yet. So he's just himself on Facebook. We have like 35 mutual friends. I'm just like, and I put together that he had done a bunch of plays in New York with good friends of mine. So I already was off the jump, like quick shorthand with Will, right when he started acting on The Good Place, I was just like, okay, this guy's fantastic. And I think I told Laura and our producer Mason, I was like, Will should play Doug in this movie. And at that point, The Good Place hadn't become what The Good Place had become. So, you know, with film financing and stuff, it's a process. So it became a thing where initially, when we were first trying to get the movie made, it was going to be tough to get the movie made with Will. Fast forward a few years, as we're figuring out a way to get the movie made, then it turns into us desperately crossing our fingers like, please, Will, do this movie because you'll be a reason we can get the movie made, as opposed to the opposite. Will's not aware of any of this. He maybe is now. He was not aware of it then. So we're just like quietly talking, like Laura and I, like, okay, I think now we can cast Will. And then we get to between season 3 and season 4 of The Good Place, and I'm like, okay, now we desperately need Will to do this movie. Like, it just kept, his star just kept rising.
Totally.
I didn't want to, like, you know, text him or send him an email or something. I was just like, I need to be in person with him. So I waited for the season 4 of The Good Place on day 3. I was like, I'm not going to do it on Monday. I'm like texting Laura. I'm like, okay, at lunch, it was Wednesday. So it's day 3 of season 4. I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait outside the stage door and hit up Will at lunch. So I went in his trailer. I put the script in the trailer, and I went up to him on that Wednesday and was like, hey man, so I wrote a movie. Aya Cash is attached to play the lead. I want you to be the other lead. You should check it out. The script's in your trailer. It's financed. He was like, okay, cool, man. Thanks. And then it was like 2 weeks later or so, I get a text from him that's like, can I swear on this?
Absolutely.
Is that cool?
Go for it.
He's just like, oh shit, this is actually good. Like, oh, this is like a real thing. This is not like, my buddy at work is writing a movie, right, and I give him some, you know, bizarre project where I need him to be like in a bubble covered in green paint underground for an hour. It's like, oh, this is like a properly structured, well-written movie that's financed, and I get to play opposite an actor I respect and would love to work with. So at that point, Will was on board, and then it was just figuring out a time that worked for Will and Aya. And then Cavallero was, you know, we basically were like, we need someone who was kind of born on the wrong planet. That was the term I kept using. It's like, find someone who's just born on the wrong planet. And so, again, our casting directors we were bringing up names, and they were like, what do you think about Tony Cavallero? And I was like, I love his character on Righteous Gemstones more than I loved any character on television over the last 5 years. I'm obsessed with Keith as a character. And so they were like, they said to me, they're like, he is a friend of ours, and he's sincerely the nicest human being we know. Like, he is the nicest person we know, and we're not exaggerating.
He really is
the person we know. So, you know, he comes in. So I was like, well, I'd love to meet him. So he comes in to meet me. It wasn't even really an audition. He came in like before the auditions for the other parts, simply as like a meet and greet kind of thing. And he comes in, he's just like, hey, loved the script. You want to hear me do the monologue, right? And I'm like, yeah, probably. He's like, I would want to hear me do the monologue. So let's do it. You want to hear the monologue? I was like, yeah, sure. And he just like stands up and just knocks the thing out of the park. And to that moment, I was just like, you know, he's about 5 words into it. I'm like, okay, that's Jason. And, you know, it turned out, now that I know him better, I mean, Laura can attest to this. He truly is the nicest person I know. I've never met anyone like him.
He so is. He's such a positive presence. And again, like, everyone on this set, I think this set, like, we shot it sort of at a summer camp. It's kind of set at a summer camp. And the atmosphere was a little bit like summer camp, where, I mean, again, it's, you're making indies in such a short amount of time, and, you know, limited, like everybody knows going into it. Jeff has worked on very big shows. Jeff was coming off The Good Place. Jeff had been on Veep. I had been on Get Shorty. These are, you know, shows with resources where if something goes wrong, you have like the money and the time and the people and the stages and all that stuff to take care of it. On an indie budget, it's a different situation. And I think if you don't have a cast that's just as like sweet and funny and up for it as this cast was, I don't know how you sort of get it done. And again, having Tony as the sort of bright shining sun there does not hurt things.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite thing, like, I don't want to spoil the movie because I really want people to go watch it because it does, like, it's not a movie that has spoilers, I guess, but there are arcs that are worth seeing in real time, I think. But what I love about Tony is the minute you meet him, and this is pretty early in the movie, you're supposed to be like, I don't know about this guy. But very quickly he wins you over because he's just delightful and ridiculous. And I love that.
Yeah.
As a delightful and ridiculous person, I see myself in him a little bit. But like, I think one of my favorite moments casting wise is when Laurie's mom walks in and it's Peri Gilpin, because of course, like, everyone knows Peri Gilpin. She's been in so many things, and like that was just a really cool moment. Also, to watch her be just a not nice person was so much fun. It's just what I love about the writing of this movie is that it feels like I could have hung out with any of them. Like, I felt like I could have been at that summer camp with them. And I think especially with a romantic comedy, that's so powerful and so necessary. You have to feel like you can just like step into that world and like just hang out with these people. And they were all so relatable. Going back to the writing of the movie, I asked a question earlier. Are any of these characters based on anyone or anything from life, or are they just kind of concocted? Is there any like character traits that even you'd say maybe one of you are in these characters a little bit?
Well, it's funny, like I think we've been asked before, like, is this a true story? Or what's funny is when Jeff and I met up in 2013 to talk about that, or in 2012 to talk about this, we had both been in long-term relationships. We're still in those relationships. Jeff was with his long-term girlfriend. They are now, they've been together about 15 years. They're now married with 2 kids. I'm still with my boyfriend. We've been together for 15 years, happily unmarried, happily with no kids. And what's interesting is that obviously those are sort of the 2 perspectives represented. So I think in terms of representing our personal perspectives, I think absolutely, I think there's a lot of each of us sort of in those characters. But beyond that, I don't think so. I think it really is, it's really rooted in each character's perspective on that sort of central conundrum at the heart of the breakup.
I mean, I will say for me personally too, there is my mom's best friend. She her and her ex-husband are still best friends, and they vacation with they have kids, but then they vacation with their new kids from their new marriages. And it was like, as a child, that blew my mind. I didn't understand it. I was just like, wait, they're divorced. Why are they all hanging out? Like, don't people hate each other when they get divorced? And so as we started figuring this, as we started working on the script, and as we started going through the process, and I guarantee had we made this as a big studio movie, we would have been pushed in the direction of making one of the characters a villain, or just making larger choices in terms of, and larger statements in terms of the relationship. But that to me would feel dishonest. I think what we wanted to do was we wanted to tell a story about 2 people who still care about each other. Like, the reason of the initial breakup has nothing to do with the fact that they don't love each other. It has to do with the fact that they have a different perspective on where they think their lives should go moving forward. And so that was an exciting thing to us.
Yeah, and I think that's what got me really excited is, like, I host another podcast that's about a sci-fi video game series with one of my best friends. We dated for like 5 years, broke up, then took some time and became close friends, and now we're inseparable. She's married to somebody else. I'm, of course, married to my incredible spouse, Sarah, which is how I know Laura. And that feels normal to me. Meanwhile, my brother, who's 9 years older than me, still thinks it's weird. And I think it's a generational thing. But like, it was so exciting for me to see this movie, and it approaches relationships like there's no, we broke up, we can never speak to each other again. Like and those kinds of relationships in romantic comedies have their place, right? The bombastic breakup, that we hate each other, we move on. Like, those are all fine. But like, I feel like there are not enough romantic comedies where it's like people grow apart. That doesn't mean they hate each other, and that doesn't mean they can't be friends. And I love that this movie addresses that, because I just feel like popular media, it's like, we broke up, now we have to get revenge, or like whatever else. And this feels way more grounded in what I consider to be reality, especially when it comes to relationships.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I think think that's been hearing people really recognize that in their own relationships and their own histories has been really wonderful because yeah, I think stories we tell, it's like we want them to have really clean edges, right? That person is now an enemy, that, you know, we divvy up the friends, the, you know, one member of the couple gets this group, another member of the couple gets the other group. And it just doesn't, I mean, to quote a Taylor Swift song,
Yes, please.
where she's like, yeah, you know, we were together and now I buy his baby's presents, you know?
Can you actually sing that line so I can understand it better?
I refuse. Download the album. She won a Grammy for it.
Yeah, it's true.
Too bad.
I really love that, you know, it feels so grounded. Like, look, I love my fair share of sci-fi and superhero movies, but like I'm someone who, like, especially in my 20s and early 30s, like that's all I wanted was like the big epics. And like over the last, you know, decade or so, I've come to want more like grounded movies, realistic movies. And like the comedies that I enjoy the most are romantic comedies that have some semblance of romance, because I think that's like there's a lot of humor. If you're not laughing in your relationship, what are you doing, right? Like relationships aren't all business, aren't all serious. Like one of my favorite comedies, problems and all, is Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is at its core a romantic comedy with fighting and video games and everything else. But there's a realness in the rooted story that makes it translate. And what I love about We Broke Up story is every beat of it feels relatable. There's nothing here that I feel like no one can relate to, between the summer camp thing, the, you know, the wedding, the Rush relationship. Like, I also love the way, like, it's very early in the story that you find out that B and Jason are getting married, and they've known each other for what, like a month, I think it was in the story.
Yeah.
And like, you're meant, like, as a society go, I don't know. But like the story doesn't do that. It's a natural reflex, but the story is like, no, they're in love. And you either understand why or you don't. And I love that. There doesn't seem to be a lot of judgment on the breakup, the people, the relationships. Like, you let people make their own decisions instead of the story. Like Jeff, you were saying earlier, if this was a Hollywood picture, someone would be the bad guy and like it would force you to have a perspective. But this, you really let people kind of make their own judgments based on the characters as is. I imagine that must have been conscious from the beginning, right?
Yeah, that was always very important to us, is just that. And I think both of us you know, Lauren and I are quite different people in a lot of ways, but we're also quite similar, I think, in that we like sort of grounded, realistic, and honest portrayals of characters and relationships. Like, in the end, I'm not that interested in watching something with characters that I don't at least empathize with or understand where they're coming from. It's just not something that excites me. For other people, it might be, but you know, I like some grounded characters.
Yeah, so I have not gone to that many weddings in my life, but I think about like my sister's wedding, and I think about the hijinks adjacent things that happen at a wedding, that if you push them to extremes, they suddenly become big comedic set pieces for like a big studio picture, you know? But in reality, it was like a very lovely wedding in Baltimore. I had a deathly flu for most of the week. I thought I wasn't going to be able to come, and I was like the maid of honor. So there you go. That's a hijinksy thing. Ended up making it there, you know, with my frog's voice. It was too cold, right? They were getting married at the you know, Baltimore Science Museum, which is like right on the river. So it's very cold, very windy, and we're all in dresses and stuff.
Was it near the Fuddruckers?
I think it might have been. I don't know. You could see the dominoes.
I'm a huge fan of that Fuddruckers. Sorry to interrupt. It was a good story, but
I love Baltimore.
Excited.
Baltimore is the greatest city that folks just don't visit. It's such a blast. I love it there. But no, it's like, you know, and my dad had Parkinson's. And so it's like, you're dealing with, okay, a parent who has Parkinson's and is at a wedding. You're dealing with a childhood friend of ours, her wife had an allergic reaction to something in the food. I was like, I have Benadryl. I'm the maid of honor. There are all these things that happen at the wedding where I'm like giving my toast about how I've like gained a brother and I sound like this. I mean, it's just, that is a hilariously tipped to extremes. You could take these events and you could sort of push the cardboard characters around and have like a big crazy wedding comedy. And what I loved is that, first of all, the setting that we were at, where we were shooting up at Calamigos Ranch, that is a wedding venue. A ton of their business is wedding venues. And they have so many different areas around the property where you can get married. And where we're actually staging it in the film is a lot of that stuff is like pre-hung, like the chandelier is pre-hung, and you have all those trees, you have the water features, but you really are in the middle of the Malibu mountains. All the nature is real nature, you know, it's not nature for show. And there's just something so naturalistic about the setting. And we really tried to maintain, like, again, the naturalism in the performances, that we're not pushing too hard, that we're not ungrounding it, that we're not, again, speaking of Tony, and all credit to Tony, obviously, like, or maybe your listeners don't always know, you shoot the movie out of order, right? You shoot the movie over a number of days, and sometimes you have to move scenes around, and you're trying to cluster things at locations, and you're dealing with daytime and you're dealing with nighttime, and it's a very complicated thing to put a schedule together. And you kind of forget where you are emotionally in the movie, in the story, sometimes as you're in production. It gets hard to keep track of sometimes. And sometimes we would pitch Tony alts, like we would pitch him funny jokes. And because he's such a mensch, he'd be like, yeah, I love that. And he would usually go for the more grounded take, because he was like, as a character, I'm keeping track of where I am as a human in this movie. And so that's a great joke. And I'm not going to do it on camera in this scene, because I think I'm in a different place here in the movie. He kept us honest that way to make sure it stayed grounded.
Or he thought our joke was terrible, because he's a professional comedian.
And he's like, guys, I'm from the Groundlings. We know comedy there. Don't try to.
I work with David Gordon Green and Danny McBride on this TV show. It's really good. You kids from Ohio are very nice. I wish you the best.
Good try.
Let me do it this way. Cool.
It's funny though, you mentioned that. It makes me like, because it does feel like there's a lot of looseness to this cast, like, right, everyone's seems to gel really well. Was there any like second and third takes of like improv? Were people doing like one-liners, or was it mostly just what was on the page?
It sort of I think a lot of it depended on what, you know, this is a conscious decision. Some people like really respond to it about the movie. Other people, it confuses them that we do have sort of different tonal areas of the movie. There are times where the movie feels more like a comedy. There are times where the movie's more dramatic. And I would say a lot of, you know, some of it's the nature of the relationships and what they're going through this weekend. You know, Jason and B are, you know, balls of energy and rainbow and love. And a lot of their stuff is more fun and up. And a lot of the stuff with Doug and Laurie's sort of quieter, and them, you know, silent moments and things like that. So I'd say generally the stuff with them was probably closer to the page, but then you'd have moments where you're like doing Paul Bunyan Day.
I was just going to say Paul Bunyan Day. Like, I have to imagine there were definitely takes of people just doing whatever.
That's full blown, just get in a field. Our production designer, Amelia Staley, and our and Zozo and the rest of our art team just dumped a bunch of blue and red things onto a field. And like, you know, we have an ox head to play with. We have a ludicrously talented Steadicam operator that we had for one day with a Ferris wheel behind the cast. And we're just like, we're going to run around doing games until the sun goes down. And so that was how that was constructed. And so, you know, you have actors like Kobe Labie, who plays Ari, the best man, who went to college with Laura and is I don't know if Laura was aware of this. I did not necessarily know that he was essentially about to be an improv just powerhouse.
I knew that he had crazy skills. I had no idea that he was going to be able to just go into like an unbroken 4-minute take, 4 different iterations of it, building the contraption and just going for it and nailing it every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, there are times it's a different muscle, but like, you know, when I was on The League and I would watch, whenever there was a scene with Nick Kroll and Jason Mantzoukas together on The League and those characters, I just went to set and just sat at the monitors. I didn't care what I was supposed to be doing. I was like, this is like for a comedy nerd like myself, I'm like, I would pay thousands of dollars to just go watch these two do essentially like a two-handed show. And I was able to do it all the time on set. And so Kobe, Tony, I sort of assumed it. Emily Pendergast, who I love to death as Groundling. We didn't really get a show her for full muscle of what she can do. At some point we will, because she's just a rock star. But Kobe's like Yale trained theater actor like Laura. I was kind of like, okay, so for this, if you could just sort of walk your team through building this Rube Goldberg machine. And he's like, okay, cool. And he just went off in this realm. And that's probably like the Yale educated, because the guy's insanely smart. He's talking about like specific, like the history of engineering and ways of design.
The Nagano Olympics.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I mean, it was just mind-boggling.
It was so good. And by the way, just, because obviously that's the team. And so like, Will and Aya are not in that shot. They're at the monitor, just mouths hanging open at the commitment and the hilarity. Those are the times when you're like really trying to stifle yourself at the monitor, because you don't want to, you don't want to wreck the sound. We were far away. We were in a field, but you're just so excited by what somebody is doing. I mean, he would get applause. Kobe would get applause.
I love that so much.
And I think that's one of the things, just circling back to casting, that sort of is invaluable when building a movie like this, is that you want to find out who's fun to work with and who's not. And because of my experience as an assistant director, any actor that got pitched by an agency or by our casting directors, I would say, give me 15 minutes and I would just start writing people. And we would just cross somebody off the list. If somebody I trusted told me, yeah, you might not want to work with them. Some people are probably fantastic to work with, but my friends also know, I'm like, this is a small indie. This is going to be sort of fast paced. This needs to be people who are just down for the cause and just want to be in something. So like you brought up Perry Gilpin, when Perry's name comes up, I text my friend who worked on, I hadn't realized, because I hadn't watched the last season yet, I didn't realize that Perry played Abby's mom on Broad City. So I'm like, okay, Perry played Abby's mom on Broad City. I write my friend who's the first AD on Broad City. I say, how was Perry to work with? And he goes, she was fantastic. She literally jumped into a koi pond while we were shooting and was just cracking up. I was like, okay, cool. And then I text casting and I say, make an offer to Perry. Like, it's that simple, because you can just vouch like, oh, if we're in a situation where we don't necessarily have all the amenities people maybe expect from film and television, are people going to be a problem or are they not going to be? That said, I don't know if Laura's mind was as blown as mine was, and the rest of it, and the cast and everybody. I think everyone assumed we wouldn't have catering or trailers or anything. And the first day I parked, I was like, we have an omelet bar and an actual base camp. I was like, do I yell at the line producer? Because maybe we could have made this movie cheaper, because we're paying for an omelet bar right now. And I was like, man, this omelet's pretty good. I feel better going to shoot right now because I'm eating an omelet. So we'll just roll with it. And so
I'm such a dork that I was literally like making iPhone videos of our dolly track. Jeff was like, of course we're gonna be able to build a dolly track. But you really don't know, I think, especially when you're so used to big studio productions, multi-million dollar productions. Then of course it's sort of like you're bringing those skills over. But yeah, I mean, when I needed to go take a nap, I did not have a Get Shorty trailer. I had my Toyota Corolla, which works fine.
Sure. I used to nap in my car all the time on my lunch breaks back in the day. Back when we, went places, back when that was the whole thing.
In the before times?
In the before times. I love that you brought up improving and not cracking, and it's like you mentioned The Good Place before, and some of my favorite things about The Good Place, you mentioned the legend that is Jason Mantzoukas, and that I loved hearing the stories from other actors about how he just tried to break everybody. And I love hearing those stories from sets, because that's the joy. You can feel that joy in the movie. Like the minute you told me that Kobe was going for it, you feel that in that moment. And I think it's so important to be able to get that. And there are some people who are just on another planet, on another level, like you were saying.
Well, there was a thing where specifically when we shot the yarmulke scene, we shot that at 2:30 in the morning.
I have to stop you for just a sec. As a Jew,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
who has gotten married and who has had
Yeah.
yarmulkes and still has yarmulkes. I have yarmulkes in every suit pocket. I have yarmulkes in my glove
So
compartment.
many. I cannot lift up a coat with like a sport jacket without finding multiple yarmulkes.
That
in the
you
pocket.
need to know that joke, the yarmulke bit, slayed me and my spouse. It was so good. It's just the first time is funny. The second time is really funny. But by the third time, it's like this is very good, very anxious, very Jewish. It's perfect.
So that shot at about 2:30 in the morning. That was one of the latest nights of shooting, and I never called cut on like the 4 or 5 takes of it. I waited until Kobe defeated Will. Kobe would just keep going and it wouldn't end. And like Will finally, and it was similar actually. Like I feel like sometimes the way certain actors are, certain people can trigger somebody else break.
Yeah.
And Kobe just had Will's number in the way that Manny had Will's number.
Oh yeah.
Like Will was usually okay with Mantzoukas and Maya and Darcy and all these other powerhouses. Manny, Will would like have to avert eyes from Manny because if he looked over at him, Manny might just be like eating the set dressing, or you don't know what he's gonna do. I vividly remember the first time that Jason Mantzoukas was on The Good Place, and I know Jason very well. I worked with him before he had a beard. I'm one of the few people who had to. I had to get hair and makeup to affix a fake beard to his face before he had the beard. And the first day he was on The Good Place, I was like, I'm gonna just go. I want to go up there and see what the hell is about to happen when you stick Jason as Derek into Michael's office. And I walk onto set and I'm like, peek around the corner, and Jason is standing on top of Michael's desk, like fully in rehearsal on top of Michael's desk, trying to eat a lamp. And I'm just like, I like wait for it to end, and he's like, so is that too much? And they're like, yeah, you got to stay on the ground. Like you can play in any of these areas, but can you not actually be in the lighting grid? Because that's off the set. Like we're on a soundstage, Jason.
Oh man, that's so good.
But that was I think John LaJoie, I'll do one more league story because it was a fun experience. John LaJoie, I don't think will be offended by this. I think this would be a sense of pride. So we were shooting an episode up in Andre's loft where Seth Rogen and Jason Mantzoukas' characters are making a porno up in the apartment. And there's like the first time that Mantzoukas and Seth Rogen meet, and like they went on to write things together and became good friends. But they're in the room just operating again on this insane level. And John LaJoie is not an actor. Like he's hilarious. He's a phenomenal musician. He's great in the part of Taco, like incredible, but he's not an actor in the way some other people are. So I'm in the elevator with him after we're done with that scene and we're going down, and I'm like, how did you get through that with the two of them? And he goes, I wasn't listening. I was singing songs in my head because it was the only way I would not ruin the take. Because he was just like, if I'm listening to them, I'm going to become an audience member and I'm going to just start hysterically laughing. But that's not what Taco would be doing. So Taco would probably just be stoned and singing in his head. So I'll just vibe with that.
Oh, I love that so much. I have to say, before we go back to We Broke Up, that The Good Place gave me a lot of things. But what I like to say the most is it gave me the most delicious villain laugh ever. If you've not watched The Good Place, skip ahead like 2 minutes. Okay, now that they've done that, they're in the future. When Michael reveals that it's the bad place, like that like that laugh, I always just say to everybody, is the most delicious villain laugh. It's wild.
It was a moment being on set where you're just like, oh, we're making something good. Like that's the moment of shooting season 1 where it was, I think, the last take. Ted, I think, said, because Mike Schur usually directs the finales, and so Mike was directing, and I think thought we were done, and Ted was like, can I get one more? And he did a last one, and that's when he sat down and just like a little kid like flicked the prop over, like as a petulant child, and that's obviously what made the take. And that show was super interesting as well as people are watching it. because as we were reading it, we had no idea what the finale was. And so when we actually do the table read and get the scripts for the finale, the whole crew is like, oh my God, like this is what we've been doing. Because the show was good. It felt good. I enjoyed working on it, but I was like, it just felt it felt very vanilla. Like it felt like something was a little bit off. And then when we get the script for the finale, I'm like, man, I hope impatient television audiences give this show enough time to get to this finale, because this is incredible. And so, and that laugh to me just similarly it's one of the most amazing moments I've witnessed on set.
It's one of mine and my spouse's favorite TV shows we've ever seen. Like it just is. But this is not a podcast about The Good Place. I could talk about it forever.
If you want, listen to The Good Place, the podcast, the episode with Jeff Rosenberg and Jason Mantzoukas. We talk about how I saved his life once.
I absolutely did. Oh man. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the diversity of the writing and directing that you both have done. Like Laura knows how nerdy I am about the fact that she wrote for a video game, and an incredibly good video game too, Minecraft Story Mode. And so I do want to talk a little bit, while I have you, Laura, about how that was different from writing for TV or writing for movies, because I imagine it had to be really different, right? Because the whole process is different.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, when you're writing for TV, when you're writing for features, when you're writing for, theater, which was my old life, my pre-life to this part of my professional career, my unfunded life, you are thinking primarily about story. You are thinking primarily about what journey am I trying to take an audience on? What journey am I trying to take a character on? And what is my end point? In video games, you have to leave equal room for the player. So the thing that, sometimes you get tired of hearing this word, but is agency, right? Where are we giving the player agency? And especially in Telltale Games, which, died and now has been resurrected, but, you can still, Minecraft Story Mode was fully ported to Netflix. So now you can experience a slightly trimmed down version, a slightly less choicey version there, which is still a wonderful version. And the devs at Telltale who did that port are to be commended, because it's really fabulous. You are really thinking about the space that you're leaving for the player to act, and what might they want to do in this moment. And even when you're designing those binary choices, right, those are like the big moments. Those are, you can only save one character, and if you go left, you save this character. If you go right, you save this character. You're really thinking about not just what's best for one story, but what might the player want to experience? What different things is the player going to experience? How are they playing that character? I think gamers are used to that when it comes to, like, they're used to having multiple endings. They're used to the concept of, oh, I'm the hero, or I'm the rogue, or I'm, the pragmatic player who's always going to sort of go straight down the middle, basically. Am I going to get the good ending, the bad ending, or the ending somewhere down the middle? But I think people who haven't played Telltale Games aren't used to that level of micro control over, oh, I even have control over whether I'm going to tell a joke in this moment, or the type of joke I'm going to tell. And, I also just want to boost up, like, my favorite piece of Telltale content that they produced was Tales from the Borderlands, which multiple dear friends of mine worked on. Nick Herman, Peter Charette, Dennis Leonard, Michael Chung, more people than I can name worked on that series. But again, it takes it beyond just, oh, I'm going to make the good choice or the evil choice here. It really gives you freedom with dialogue and joke telling and all these fun, avenues to go down and to take these characters down. So you really are thinking about the player. You're trying not to be selfish and saying, well, I want the good outcome. I want the storyteller's outcome. No, you have to leave room for, what is the 11-year-old who's playing with his sister? Yeah. What are they going to want to do? What is the 30-year-old who's experiencing a piece of interactive content for the first time? What are they going to want to do? So it is a different process where sometimes you have to throw out, like, your best ideas, or you have to throw out a measure of control, and you have to say, well, how can we branch this? What are the possibilities here? I still think that, like, one of the best choices in a Telltale game is in season 2 of The Walking Dead, where you're playing as Clementine. In the second game, you're playing as, I think she's still like 11 or 12 in that game. And you're sort of holed up in a ski lodge, and you have the choice. It's a lunch table choice. It's, are you going to sit with your new group, your core group that you've been with this game? Or are you going to sit with a guy who pops back up, who you know from the first game? New friends or old favorites? And it's literally like a, hey, over here, hey, Claire. And you have to make a choice. That's a dynamite choice, because there are good reasons to go with both. And you see the repercussions. If you don't go with one or the other, you're going to hurt somebody that you care about, that you have a relationship with. And whereas in a movie, I'm designing the whole thing. There's no room for the audience to sort of say what they want. And that's great. It's just different mediums. But I think that's really been the pleasure for me in that narrative choice-based space.
Would you want to do more video game writing?
I have. I've done some consulting. I was really fond of it. I wish they'd gotten a chance to make more of it, but a whole season with a studio called Fog Bank, which was a division of Fox Next. They were a casualty of the Disney merger. Yeah. Complicated moving pieces, but it was a branching narrative romance game set in Silicon Valley, and and also it was sort of a sly way for me to tell a story about like gender politics in tech companies. And it was so fun. You could play as totally asexual, you could play a bi path, you could play a hetero path. It was so much fun. I'd never written a romance before, and it was a blast. So I've tried to, but I have to say, like, as my TV career gets busier, game companies are still 9-to-5 jobs. I just don't have the time. I don't have the bandwidth for it anymore. I tried. I was on a project for a couple months, 2019 or 2020 into 2021, and there was just too much going on with my other projects.
Well, I mean, I think that totally makes sense, I think, because it's just the volume, right? What takes, games are anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30 hours versus a movie, which is a quarter to an eighth to a tenth of that.
Totally.
I want everyone in the world to see this movie. I really do. I've never fallen in love with a comedy so fast as I did this. And like, I knew that the DNA for that was there. Like, I know your writing, Laura. I've seen you do some incredible stuff for the 24-hour plays, and like, I've seen your previous work. And so I knew that was there. But like, I just didn't expect, I'm not kidding when I said to Sarah immediately after watching it, I have to see if Jeff and Laura will come on the podcast, because I love this movie so much. Before we start to wrap up, I've been asking on recent episodes of Autographs, we've been in this never-ending hell year that is 2020, that it's now 2021. The pandemic hopefully is starting to wind down, but there's been a lot of terrible things both due to the pandemic and otherwise over the last year, and it's been really hard. I like to ask my guests, what's a really good thing to come out of the pandemic? What's a standout thing that's like during this year and a half that really means so much to you and that has been a really great thing, since it's so easy to focus on the bad things?
I mean, I would say for me, as a father with a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, especially my 3.5-year-old, I don't think I knew her as well as I do now. I want to say I worked something like basically 16 or 17 straight months, something like that, as an AD, up until I took the 2 months off to prep this movie right before we started shooting, just because I knew I was going to take some time from a more regular job to direct this movie. And so the fact that I'm able to spend most days with my daughter and with my son, that's been fantastic. I feel like I have been able to be a far more present dad and things like that. So because we're sort of trapped in a house together, we have to learn how to share a space, and I think it's been a wonderful thing for me.
I love that. Laura?
I think let's see if it lasts, but I've been really excited about the appetite for raising new voices, for raising underrepresented voices. And to some extent in theater, obviously I'm less involved in theater now, but in TV and film, I think, look, and sometimes people need to get called out and called in at the same time. And, I think the world of television and entertainment historically has really struggled with language around this area, and they've struggled with not embarrassing themselves in terms of what their goals and desires are. I always say that like the nonprofit theater world has mastered the language of equity, diversity, and inclusion. I don't know how much they actually care, but they know the words. They know good sounding words. TV and feature, I think they fumble more. I think they make more mistakes. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, get people paid and make their stuff and mentor them and bring them into the circle. I think it is like, I give playwrights different advice now than I did even 5 or 6 years ago, because I do think that the culture changes so quickly. And like the way that I first like got my first television jobs and my first meetings and stuff, I don't know if that's still an accessible route to folks who are trying to duplicate the same thing. And now I advocate like a much more DIY approach and be making your own stuff for little or no money, and getting your face out there and getting your work out there. Don't wait for permission, but I do think that even though the motive might be one of panic, or, oh my God, we haven't been doing the right thing. Oh my God, we've been ignoring all these people, all of which is true. I think the sudden appetite and being like, oh my God, we've got to find these voices. It's a mixed bag, right? Which is like, jump on the train while it's coming into town. And also, how long lasting is this panic going to be? How long lasting is this interest going to be? We don't know that yet. But I think in the meantime, I think it has cast a spotlight on a lot of folks who have sort of been like, I need to look at the people I know and the people I hire and the people I'm working with and the people I can call on. I need to expand my networks. I need to do better. And I think whereas in theater, that can get you read, I think in TV, ideally it's getting you paid. And that's valid. And not everything might go somewhere, but if you can get an artist paid so that they can get the next opportunity, hey, I'm all for it. You know what I mean? I'm all for it. The gatekeeping thing is very real, and how people gain access is very real, and has something to do with talent, but has just as much to do with luck. And it's very tough. It's very impenetrable from the outside. So I have been sort of heartened that in this massive sort of shakeup of business as usual, some good stuff is sort of rising.
I love that. That's excellent. And I agree. Yeah. I think that there are some things that couldn't have possibly happened without the pandemic. And while, of course, it's unfortunate and not easy or light, there are things that have happened as a result of this that will change everything. And I think that's also really important and a good thing to focus on, at least. Before I have you guys plug the hell out of We Broke Up and do my sign off, which I will prep you for, I would love to know if each of you has a favorite line from the movie. If there's a specific line from a character that you can remember, like, I won't ruin it, but my favorite lines, I'll cheat, is Jason's speech. I'm not going to say where it happens or what, but like that monologue is some of my favorite writing in movies. I just love it because it's, as someone who is shamelessly, hopelessly, and devotedly in love with my spouse, like that moment of love felt so real. And so that's my favorite, but I'm curious if either of you have one.
Man, I feel like my brain is broken and can't stop thinking about Pedro Lopez, who's not even fully on camera in it, in the yarmulke scene, saying, when he says, "I'm the king," when Will says, "I'm the king of the ushers," and he goes, "Is not a real position." Just,
it's so good.
That guy is such a comic assassin, and I've worked with him on a few things, and he was on the show Sunnyside I had done for NBC right before we shot, and I hadn't seen him in a few years, and I was like, he was there, and he had like a similar like one line. I was hysterically laughing at the monitors, and I wrote our casting directors. I was like, this, Taylor, we need to offer this to Pedro Lopez right now. I need Pedro Lopez in this movie with this one line, and it kills me every day.
His disgust, the disgust in his delivery.
It's so good. He's just like, it's just, like, you idiot.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
And then, I want one more.
Okay.
Because it's not in the movie because it's so aggressive. It's kind of in the movie. It's buried very deep. But it was my favorite thing the whole time we were making the movie was while they're building the Rube Goldberg machine, you can hear it very faintly off screen, is Laurie screaming at Emily Pendergast's character Allison at the top of her lungs, "Figure it out, Allison." And that's in the script. That's like the only scripted line in that scene is "Figure it out, Allison," with like 8 exclamation points. And when we were writing, I just loved screaming it, and I loved the idea of Aya screaming it in Emily's face. And every time she yelled it at her, I loved it so much. And then when you're actually making the movie in the world where you don't want a villain, you're just like, oh my God, because Aya is so committed to everything. You're just like, Laurie looks like she's about to murder this random nice bridesmaid who we don't really even know her name. We learn her name is Allison in the moment she gets murdered with PVC pipes. So it's off camera, but it's my favorite line.
I will say also my favorite gesture in the movie, which when he did it on the day, so Zack Steiner, who plays Eric, right, who's Laurie's temptation of the movie. What a temptation! God. What a temptation to have.
We could
Mr.
talk,
Zack Snyder.
We could talk for an hour. I could talk for an hour and a half with a therapist about the casting of Zack Steiner.
Man,
because
surgical.
I was convinced that character needed to be like a short, charming, funny, like Jewish guy like me. And Laura,
I said, "What are you thinking?"
Amanda and Chrissy, everyone involved in this project was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, this needs to be basically like
needs to be Zach. Also, and Zach is also like literally such a dreamboat, and also like the sweetest, funniest. What a mensch.
The moment I watched his audition on the room, I think like everyone was a little distracted because
how could you not be?
Yeah, how could you not be? So everyone's a little
Paul Newman-esque.
But then when I sit in my chair and like got home and watched the audition back, I'm just like, I'm an idiot. This guy. Can we just cast Zach? Anyway, sorry.
He's so great, but in that same scene, his frustration over losing and the actor on the day just hurled a piece of PVC pipe, and it made me laugh so hard. It's such a pointless, hilarious gesture that I love so much. So there is a couplet that we did not write that I will forever be sad that got cut from the movie. And Jeff knows the couplet. He knows the couplet because I fought across many cuts to keep it in. We didn't write it. This was an improvisation. So this was, Tony Cavallero and Eduardo Franco. Eduardo came in for one scene. He's the check-in guy. He's the check-in clerk.
That whole moment.
The brilliant, hilarious Eduardo Franco. And they're just riffing back and forth. And clearly these are two characters who, the groom has checked in, or Tony's character has checked in early. And so they've gotten to know each other a little bit. They're buddies at this point. They've got their hand gestures and they're just riffing, right? They're just improvising. And at the end of it, Eduardo's just like, yo, what are you doing this weekend? And Tony's just like, getting married. And I loved it so much. I loved that improvised joke so much. And it did not make the final cut, but it gave me delight every time I saw it.
Here's breaking news on the podcast. I have not said this out loud to Laura because I've been avoiding this conversation. Okay. But here we go. Because of the way we made this movie during the whole edit was during the pandemic. So after we finished shooting, within 2 weeks, there were stay-at-home orders. So I had never seen the movie. We weren't able to watch it in a room with people. That's normally what you do. You either do a test screening or you get at least a small group of friends to sit in your living room and watch together. I had only watched it with my wife. I think to this day, Laura's probably only seen it with James. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to, when it came out in theaters a couple weeks ago, I was able to see it in a movie theater twice. And I learned a few things about the cut. There are things, had we been able to watch it with people, that I think I would have adjusted, that I don't want to, there's no point harboring on it now. I'm so excited with how the movie came out. I still think it wouldn't have made the movie, but in one of the 2 screenings, I questioned if it should still be in. Wow. So I will give that to Laura.
I was right. It was just
in one of the 2.
Guileless.
In the first screening, I thought, ooh, was Laura right in all those emails? Should that have made it? And then in the second screening, I was like, nah, I think we were right to get rid of it.
Yeah. I maintain that I was right. I just love the innocence with which Eduardo
Oh,
the and the equal generosity with which Tony reminds him of the whole reason here. I just loved it.
When I've been, as happens on any project you ever make, people start making, literally I got 2 texts today about We Broke Up 2, or like people make the jokes about it. If we were to ever re-enter this world, what it would start with that scene. We would have Mike and Jason at the checkout counter, and then Eduardo Franco would walk away from that conversation into a back room and wind up in a Pineapple Express-esque action comedy.
I love
100%.
it.
Like, it would be like a follow him with the wedding barely there. Like, that was one when we were casting that part. It's one scene. I wish, looking back, we knew he would do it, because I would have given him like 12 more scenes in the movie, because he's so amazing. Amanda and Chrissy asked, like, who do you want to play this guy Mike at the front desk? I was like, what'd be awesome is just if you could just find me somebody like Eduardo Franco. And they're like, well, why don't we just offer it to Eduardo Franco? And I'm like, he's not going to do it, but sure. And so we offered to him, and the next day I get a text, Eduardo's in. And I was just like, wait, what? I was like, what? This is like one scene. It turned out he was friends with Tony, and he liked the scene and liked the script, so he did it. And we're like, man, we are underutilizing this just fantastic actor. But it ends up, it's nice when you can have people, you have Larissa Olenek, who's a dear friend of mine. You sprinkle her into scenes. You have people pop in, and you want people to want more of your secondary characters and have them sort of hold their own when they pop in.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's funny that you talk about that scene. Like, it is often that I relate to William Jackson Harper's characters. Like, whenever Chidi got a stomachache, it was like, oh, I know those moments. I've been there. And similarly here in this scene, when he's talking to Eduardo Franco and trying to communicate that they need another room and they need it soon. And it's like, oh, it's going to be like, it's just the frustration. The conversational frustration is so real to me as an anxious person who doesn't want to pick a fight with someone in customer service, because I've been there. Like, it's so palpable in that moment that whole scene is just expertly crafted. I mean, the whole thing is, but like, I love that.
I feel like I'm realizing in this moment that I think that scene might, more than any other scene in the movie, be a proxy for Laura and I. Like, if we were in that situation, I'd be like, don't even worry about it. And Laura would be like, this is what we need, so we're gonna do it, and we're gonna tell them right now. And I'd be like, ugh.
That is 100% my person. I'm not type A. I'm type A plus. And 100% I would have said, I am my father's daughter, and I will be getting a different room.
And I'll be like, I'll just sleep in the Corolla in the parking lot. It's fine. It's cool. Just chill.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's great. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. This has been delightful. Before I have you sign us off and send us off into the wild world, I would love for you both to tell, or one of you, if only one of you wants to take this task on, tell folks where, not it. For those who aren't watching, Jeff did the on the nose, not it, which I thought I was the only person and my friends who did that, so I appreciate it. Just plug the movie, tell folks where they can find it, where they can find info about it, where they can go watch it, and where they can go check it out.
So the movie's called We Broke Up. It's available pretty much anywhere you rent movies online. So it's on iTunes, it's on Amazon, it's on Vudu, it's on DirecTV, Cox Cable, Spectrum, anything
Apple
like
TV
that.
Plus, all of them.
Yeah, pretty much anywhere you rent movies, it's available. So, we thought it was okay. Matt loved it, so I'd say trust him over us. We tried. I don't even know at this point.
Well, I hope that everyone goes to watch it. I mean it with all sincerity when I said I had a blast. I'm going to watch it again, I think, this week after this conversation, because I want to see it again. And just everyone go check it out. They have a Twitter for it. Like, you can find it online. Literally, if you Google We Broke Up, it comes right up. Just go do it. Because
if you Twitter search We Broke Up all the time, you see weird things.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You learn things about it.
It is not an easily searchable, like, to find people talking about your movie, because there are some weird breakups happening every 5 minutes on Twitter.
I didn't know that, but now I do. To sign off the show, we have a saying on the podcast, which is born out of my now defunct music podcast. And the saying is, music is life and life is good. It's this idea that if you're making art of some kind, even when life is at its worst, it's still not that bad because you're making something. So I would love for Laura to say, music is life, and then Jeff to say, and life is good. If we could do that, we will sign off the show.
Music is life.
And life is good.
That's it for this episode of CPOV Autographs. Our theme music is by Michael Kill. Our logo was designed by Case Aiken and Joey Amons. If you liked the show, please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. It's a great way to help us reach more listeners. Questions, comments, or guest recommendations? Email mr.matt.storm@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at CPOV Autographs. Thank you so much for listening.
We've made difficult decisions.
And there are still more ahead of us.
2 people aren't enough to save the galaxy.
We need the toughest,
Smartest.
deadliest allies.
We need you.
We need you to join us.
And listen to Reignite.
A Certain Point of View podcast about storytelling
Love.
and Mass Effect.
Join us every other Thursday as we fight for the fate of an entire galaxy.
You can find us everywhere you get your podcasts.
Or at certainpov.com/reignite.
We're counting on you.
We should go.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.